If you're looking for homeschool sanity, welcome. I'm Dr. Melanie Wilson, Christian psychologist turned homeschool mom and curriculum author. But I was once so disorganized, I thought I had to quit homeschooling and stop having kids. Now, by the grace of God, I have 6 homeschool graduates. Whether we're discussing parenting, productivity, or practical tips, I pray that this episode is just what you need for happy, healthy homeschooling. Thank you to Judson College for sponsoring this episode of the Homeschool Sanity Show. Hey, homeschoolers, are your kids connecting with their grandparents and other elders? There is so much to be gained from intergenerational relationships, as my guest can attest to. Isabel Tom is a mother of 3, the author of The Value of Wrinkles, and a professional serving the older adult population. She was raised in an intergenerational home and is passionate about improving these family relationships. I loved our chat and wished I had met Isabel when my kids were younger. I hope you enjoy it. Isabel, thank you so much for joining me here on the Homeschool Sanity Show. I am very much interested in discussing this topic as someone who attends many homeschool conferences. I talk to a lot of grandparents who are very involved in homeschooling. And so I think it's about time that I address this topic for my listeners. But before we dive into it, I would love to have you tell us more about you and your family.
Sure. So my name is Isabel Tom, and I'm a mom of 3. I have kids who are 8, 10, and just 13. I am a wife of an elementary school teacher, actually, so we kind of are on both sides of the spectrum. And my background is in senior care. I've worked in hospice care and senior living. And I'm the author of a book called The Value of Wrinkles, a young perspective on how loving the old will change your life. Been creating intergenerational resources. And the biggest thing, I guess, is I grew up living in a multi-generational home. So that's kind of where this all started. Wasn't my plan, but where it all started.
Hey, wonderful. Well, I absolutely love older people. I started my intention was to become a geropsychologist. So I wanted to work with older adults. I worked in nursing homes for a number of years, and to this day, and all the years that I was a young wife and mom, I have had many, many dear friends who are older adults. So I just have a passion for that generation, especially as I get closer and closer to being a member of that, that generation. So we want to talk about why it is so important for moms and parents to focus on helping their kids connect with grandparents, and why is this something that we should spend our time on?
Well, I think there's so very many reasons, and I think you probably have experienced a lot of the benefits of being around older adults yourself. I would say, number one, I think having older people in your life gives you a long-term perspective. And so grandparents are like the first place to start, right? They're part of your family. And so as kids, a lot of times I know my kids and the kids I've worked with, they're thinking about today. What can I get today? What can I buy? What toy can I do? And their perspective is so short term, but even just having an older person in their life allows them. You don't even have to talk about it, but they start to understand that, wow, one day, I'm going to be that age. And as I get older, different things happen, things change. So I think it prepares them for life. It gives you a realistic picture of what life is like. And then I think very practically as a parent, I think that having grandparents in our kids' lives helps our kids with social skills in one of the safest environments. So grandparents are so gracious to their grandchildren. I say that like a grandchild, I've seen grandkids, young grandkids look at their grandparents and say like, why are you walking all funny? Or what happened to your hair? And their grandparents just laugh. They have so much grace for them and they enjoy, it's refreshing to them to be around their grandchildren. And so I think that's a great opportunity for them to learn social skills. Whereas if you practice among maybe other peers, you're not going to get that same grace. So I have really used the grandparents to be a place of even just learning how to talk to somebody on the phone or, how to interact with somebody, how to ask somebody how they're doing. And when you teach your kids to interact with a grandparent or an older person, they're learning how to interact with somebody who's very different from them. And that's a
Mhm.
life skill that they're going to have to learn whether they go out to the workforce. But this is very different, completely different generations. And so I think it's more important than we think it is.
I love that. I had never thought of it that way, honestly, that it can teach these social skills
Yeah.
and be a great way to practice
Mm-hmm.
those skills before we take them out of the house, right?
Exactly. Before we
Um,
allow them out, like, let's let
yeah,
them practice it.
absolutely kidding. So anyway, what are the major challenges that parents face as they try to get their kids to appreciate and respect and interact with grandparents or other older adults, whether that is in your family or outside of the family?
Yeah, okay. So I think one is our expectation often is unrealistic. Like we think that
Mm.
this should be like a best friend type relationship. So we get discouraged when the kids and grandparents just aren't getting along. Like we see those examples of, for example, people look at my story and say, oh, well, we're never going to have that where you grew up living with your grandparents. Well, I think realistically, if they came into my house, it wasn't always picture perfect, right? And so I think just really having a realistic picture and also understanding that just with all the other things in life that are good for our kids, like veggies, piano lessons, whatever things that you send your kids to, our kids aren't always going to appreciate what's good for them. And so this relationship I think it's very beneficial for them. But, I am starting to now, I'm like in my 40s. So now I'm understanding that was really good for me. But back then, I grew up living with my grandparents for the first 26 years of my life. I don't think I could have told you at that time, like, this is really good for me. I want to be here, give me everything you've got. So I think it's just remembering that, this is a beneficial relationship for them to have, but they're not always going to appreciate it.
That is very, very good. I really, I was drawing a comparison between what you were saying there about children not appreciating their relationships with their grandparents at an early age. And I think you could say the same thing about homeschooling. I
Hmm.
think it takes some maturity and some life experience for kids to truly value what homeschooling has given them in life. So there is definitely a parallel there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because it can be challenging for kids to value those older adult relationships, is there anything that we can do now to move that process along and help them?
Yeah, I think parents are the connectors, or whoever is teaching these kids, we're the connectors, we're the playmakers. So it's important that number one, we're on board, right? So I think our role is really to whet their appetite of and help them to see how interesting their grandparents are. Even as a parent, right? I look at my mom and my mother-in-law, and I actually only know them for a certain period of their life, but there is a whole chunk of their life that I don't know about. And so, helping our kids by talking to them about their grandparents, asking questions, just like you have conversations and you're homeschooling them, you're teaching them about all different subjects. You have conversations about their grandparents or with the grandparents And I think that whets their appetite and allows them to use their curiosity for good. I think as a mom, I'm always like, okay, hold on one second, not another question. Like I need a minute right now, right? But I want them to be connected to somebody who appreciates their questions, and grandparents are
Mm.
all for that. And so I actually created a resource 2 summers ago with a grandkid investigator, camp and kit. And basically, I wanted to make it fun for kids to discover small things, facts about their grandparents. And then once they realize that, oh, wow, my grandma lived here. Oh, my grandpa played with these things when he was younger. That's so interesting,
Mm.
to kind of teach them that skill of asking questions so they ask another question, right? So I basically provided them with prompting and guidance so that they could start to realize, oh, there's more in here. If I ask more questions, I'm going to find out more. And I think it's not just an activity, it's a reality that the more they dig, they're going to find out, they never knew their grandparent when they were their age, right?
Mm.
So I think it's just, it can be a lot of fun. So I think it's really just teaching the kids and going along with them in that journey to help them realize this is fun. There's
Mhm.
really cool stuff you can figure out about your older loved one and about your grandparent.
I love that. Okay, so can you tell us more about what is inside the grandkid, or is it the grandparent investigator
It's the
kit or
grandkid
grandkid?
investigator kit.
Grandkid.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure I have it right. So, what is inside it and how does it work?
Oh, yeah. So basically, there are 12 missions that I assign to kids, and their ultimate mission is to uncover as much evidence as they can about their grandparent. So, like, the more details they get, the better. And all of these 12 missions, they have to do with different topics. So I have Operation Launch, which is the very first operation mission that's assigned. And basically, that walks kids through exactly what to say. So they know how to kind of prep the grandparent for this. I'm a grandkid investigator, and I'm going to be asking you questions. What's the best time that I can call you? What's the best way that I can contact you? And just kind of setting the stage. Then there are different missions like Operation Marshmallow, Time Travel, Operation Cake, Operation Dustpan. And what they do is they take different topics and kind of pull out what I say, like interesting facts about grandparents. A lot of times, grandparents, having worked with older adults, and you have this experience too, they have stories,
Hmm.
but sometimes their stories are not. Um, Brief. Sometimes they're not prepared well, they're not edited. And so these kids are sitting there, and it's not that the story's not a good story, but they can't appreciate it because
Mm.
they're sitting through this like 5 hour memoir, and they're like, this is not interesting. So what I wanted to do, it kind of was inspired by my son likes National Geographic weird but true facts. And so he always flips through his books and says, whoa, did you know this? Did you know this? And so what
Mm.
these missions do is it pulls out facts that maybe wouldn't be like the typical story that you would pull out from an older person. But for example, you might pull out the fact that grandma actually likes salty things. She doesn't like sweet things. And in Operation Marshmallow, they asked, do you like going out to eat or do you like staying in to eat? It allows them to learn facts about them now to help them also realize that they don't just have a history book. They're not just a
Mm.
history book.
Mhm.
They are a person now. And it allows them to
Mhm.
find those commonalities. And then if it's a topic that's very interesting, maybe grandma loves talking about food and you never knew that, right? Then
Mm.
she starts telling different stories like, oh, I had one grandparent start remembering an old grocery store, like, oh, I used
Mm.
to go to this grocery store. I forgot about that grocery store. So it's a wonderful chance for kids to hear the fun stuff about their grandparents, and then a chance for grandparents to feel seen and heard, because I think
Mm.
rarely are they asked the questions. Usually they're intentional to the grandchildren.
Mm. Boy, I just can't say how much I love this idea. It really feels to me like it has a language arts
Yeah.
component to it, that you could purchase this kit and you could count it as history, you could
Yeah.
count it as language arts. And it sounds like it would be just plain fun and really could be so useful in building a closer relationship, making those grandparents feel valued and
Mm-hmm.
seen and needed. I know many older adults can feel like they aren't needed anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, I mean, this would just be a fantastic tool
Mm-hmm.
for people to get a hold of and use it. So I feel like you have told us why you created it, but is there anything else that you wanted to share about what prompted you to create this kit?
Well, I grew up living with my grandparents, 26 years in the same house. My grandma she passed at 102, and I was 35 years old, right? And I worked in the senior care field. So what happened is I look back on my life and I realized, wow, I got so much benefit from being around my grandparents, older adults, but my own kids, they don't live with their grandmas. They don't live with their grandparents. And so I really wanted to find a way to be intentional about this relationship, but to be able, I think not to have to spend 26 years to make it happen. And
Hmm.
so I kind of was just reflecting on my own relationship with my grandparents and also my relationship with a lot of the older adults that I've come in contact with. What was it that made me interested in still connecting with them? And so this is kind of where it landed. And my kids, this was one of those things where my kids, they were listening to me as I'm trying to put this together, and they're like, no, that's not fun. Yes, this is fun. We should do this. So it really was, they're your hardest critics, right? And so that's kind of how it came about. And so I love the fact that, it really, when it comes down to it, it's something that benefits me, benefits me. And I see that it could be benefit a lot of other parents out there because I think they want that relationship, but sometimes we're just too tired to put together a whole activity for our kids to be able to bridge the generations together. So
Absolutely. And so you've done the heavy lifting for
yeah.
them, and you've tested it with
Hmm.
the younger generation to make sure that it's fun and workable. Well, I am super excited about it. I wish my kids were still young and at home, and I would be grabbing the grandkid investigator kit for sure. So, where can listeners find this kit, and where can they connect with you online?
Yeah, so they can go to valueofwrinkles.com/GKI.
Okay.
And that's where I have an actual physical box that's available for a limited time. And then I have a digital kit that's always available. So if they go to valueofwrinkles.com/GKI fam. And then finally, I have a free mission. So if any of your listeners want to get a free mission, it's valueofwrinkles.com/free mission. And that one is a really fun one. It's like a Mad Lib style where they do a silly story with the grandparent and then they find out the real story of what happened.
I
So,
love it. I love it. Okay. And then where are you online?
so I am on Instagram at Isabel C. Tom. And then if you go to Facebook, then I'm under the Value of Wrinkles. So
Okay.
I'm happy to connect with people anywhere where you find me.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. And I'm going to be putting those links in the show notes for this episode. I hope our listeners will at least go and get the free mission and see what this is all about. It just sounds like a brilliant summer activity. It is summer when we are recording this, and you could definitely find time for this summer. So, Isabel, thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thanks for having me.
To find the links to Isabel's resources and to connect with her online, visit the show notes page at homeschoolsanity.com/grandparents. Have a happy homeschool week. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I hope something you heard was encouraging. If you have a personal question to follow up, don't hesitate to message me. I'm at Homeschool Sanity on social media. Be sure to check my free resource page at homeschoolsanity.com/resource and find Sanity Saving Curriculum at funtolearnbooks.com. This has been a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.